Hello guys, welcome back to Mindful Monday, and today I said I'd film here from my living room and just try a different location. And I was writing down some different things about intuition, the inner voice, your own presence, and that energy inside you that helps you to do things, to step out of your comfort zone sometimes. Other times it's like this feeling or this knowing, or for some people it can be this seeing in their own mind's eye, something that they know they can do and that they're excited to do, and they do it basically and they achieve things. So I think it's very important that we speak today about little ways that we can connect to our inner voice, our own presence, and of course our own knowing and intuition. So what I started to think about in my own experience, and really for me, I found nature was a great way to connect with my inner knowing, my inner voice also, my own presence. And for me, the word presence comes up very strongly because it's like this energy or this feeling, this connectedness. When I'm in nature, or if I am, we'll say, doing something got to do with nature, whether that's food, organic, good produce, food that I'm cooking, or if I'm repotting plants, simple things. I mean, you don't really have to be in a park all the time, but if you can get there, that's absolutely amazing. Or if you have a beautiful garden, that's amazing too, because I found for me personally, one of the strongest times that I felt most awake and most connected to every person, to every plant life, to every form, and all the knowing came from me and all my intuition was heightened, was when I connected with nature. So even just getting creative with nature, something like cooking, or I remember one time I found some twigs that had naturally fallen from trees, and I created these beautiful ornamental style kind of wooden wands with crystals, and I gave them to friends, and I hung some of them up around my own home. And all the time that I was making them, I felt this deep connection, and this deep knowing and presence, this energy. And I was really doing it from a place of joy, from the inner child as well, that inner knowing. So it's really beautiful when we start to connect with our intuition, our inner knowing, our presence. It's so important. And also the inner voice, because the inner voice is the part of us that can guide us, and that can connect us to the right people, or the right place, or the right situation that we want to be in and we're hoping to be in. And sometimes we block it out because we distract ourselves. And the simplest ways I can show you today on how we distract ourselves is simply by sitting down, watching TV, or completely zoning out onto Facebook or other social media sites. As amazing as they all are, I use Facebook myself. I use YouTube here to make videos, but I know that if I spend too much time there, that I lose the connection to my own inner voice. I lose the connection to my own presence, my energy. I lose the connection to my own knowing. It's very simple. It's not that that we intentionally do this, It's just the way the world is today. It's fast-paced, it's fast-moving, and we're trying to gather all the information that we need, and we're trying to also to stimulate ourselves, to make ourselves feel happy through technology and looking at Facebook. We're watching our families, we're watching our friends, we're watching people we don't know that we're learning from. So what can happen sometimes is we get too drawn into it. And when we're watching other people create amazing things in their lives, it's very inspiring. And it can always give us the nudge or the knowing to do our own creative things. But sometimes I found myself personally, when I research for my channel or I'm studying, like I've said before, I'm doing a lot of different studies, that I found I was not as creative, here on YouTube. My videos have gone down a lot, and I think that it was because I'm externally focusing on my studies, and I'm watching a lot of content that I'm learning from, But all through that time, even though I'm learning, my own voice was getting smaller and quieter. So for the past week, I started to really zone into myself. So I'm going to share with you today how you can do that also. And it's very simple, and not as easy as it seems, but definitely worth trying. And I found that I just kind of switched off social media, and I switched off all the distractions, outside, and we get into these routines which are amazing. We have our routines with our children. If we're going to work, we have those routines. But sometimes we need to change up the routines, I think. Certain routines we have to keep. But sometimes it's good to change up a routine, because if we keep doing the same things, we're really disconnected from our inner voice. Sometimes it's better to take a different path. Maybe you walk your kids to school or you drive to work a certain way. And maybe try going a different direction, The mind starts to see different images, it starts to pick up different feelings, different ideas, or maybe start speaking to different people, But what I found this week was, instead of taking different directions or going different ways, I found that I just switched everybody off externally. And not that I didn't connect with amazing friends or amazing people I love to connect with here on YouTube. Yes, of course, there are the people that that you have to support and you have to make an effort with, your family, your friends. But what I did find was I started to listen to myself more. I started to reflect. I started to write things down. How do I see it? How do I see intuition? Like the reason this video came about today. How do I see the inner voice? And when I started to write things down and to really understand my own experience without externally, we'll say, gathering up information from others or the people who I'm being taught by at the moment, different teachers, I started to say, okay, that's everybody else's opinion, but what is your opinion? So this is what I invite you to do this week. I know that we all love to learn from each other, we love to gather information, and this is amazing. That's what we're all here for. This is a family here on YouTube, and we all love to share our information and connect with each other. It's so important to have friends and like-minded people, but really, we can't share valuable information if we don't actually go into ourselves and try to find our own wording, our own ideas, and our own feelings on it. And presence for me is the presence of a plant, we'll say. How do I feel when I'm around a certain plant? Like for me, sage is my favourite herb. And every time I'm around it, I feel very uplifted. I feel strong. Because when I see the sage plant, it's a winter plant. It's used here at Christmas time for cooking. But not only that, it can be used all year round for making teas. And this has always been very sacred to me, this herb, and just connecting like that, listening to my own inner voice, being able to connect with nature, remembering that the things that I really enjoy to do and how they show me what presence is, what intuition is. And I found over the years when I worked with, in my own home, when I worked with plants and I worked with blending teas and juicing and creating salads, that's when all this information came to me, that I needed to expand myself more and to come on YouTube and speak about mindfulness and speak about personal development and, all the different things that I've spoke about throughout this year. But if I had to be totally honest with you, what brought me to that awakening, to that point, to where I got that intuition, more importantly, that inner voice, that inner knowing, was through connecting with nature and not just walking in the fields, which I've done many times, or walking in the woods, and I love all of those things. But when I couldn't get outside, when I was inside with the kids, my only way was connecting with nature was me using the herbs that I have in the home, growing herbs and making teas, making beautiful salads and making beautiful foods and feeding all that, to nurturing myself with all this amazing food, organic, clean fresh foods. And then when I did that, I was also practicing meditation. And the meditation is a great way to connect with your own inner voice, to connect with your intuition, to connect with your presence. Because presence for me is the intuition, is the inner voice. And I think it can be different, because the way I'm speaking about it here can be very different to everybody. There's the people, the seers, the feelers, and the people who hear. So for a lot of people it will be a gut feeling, that knowing, that push, and that's where their intuition lies, that's where their knowing lies. Another person, then it could be the heart. It's that warm, fuzzy feeling that gives us the push that something is right for us, that gives us a feeling that somebody's nearby, that we miss or that we know, and next minute you open the door and they're there, or they call you on the phone. You know what I'm talking about. I'm sure everybody has had those feelings, and some people call it coincidences. I don't. I call that an inner knowing. It's an inner, it can come from the heart or it could come from the gut. It really depends on the person, and that's your intuition. And that has happened to me a lot throughout my life, where I would get a feeling about somebody, or I would think about somebody and I would meet them, or they would call me, or there'd be some synchronicity how we would meet up. So I think it's really amazing. It's something we don't really tap into enough. And I think we've become very disconnected from nature, from our own nature, from nurturing our nature. And really the only way we can nurture our own intuition, our own inner voice, our own knowing, is by feeding those senses. And how do we feed those senses? We feed those senses with the foods that are living, those foods that are actually have presence also. They're the foods that speak to us. All the different herbs have different healing benefits. Every vegetable has a different healing benefit, and we can use that through juicing or through steaming or through cooking. So food really is life nurturing us. If we see it like that, then our intuition gets louder, our inner voice gets louder, our knowing gets louder. And I really can't say it any other way, because this is the way it has always been true for me. And I know that when I slip, when I eat a lot of junk food, the knowing leaves me. I don't have as much knowing. I don't have as much intuition. Sometimes I don't make the correct decisions. So I know that it's time for me to start feeding more living foods that have presence, that have life, that nurture me. And I'm also nurturing them, watching them grow, touching them, sensing them. I remember back in about, I think it was maybe 2010, when I first started growing herbs, and I started making my own teas and blending. I always went with my intuition on blending teas. What types of teas would be nice mixed with others, how they would taste, and it was all about the senses. So, you see, your intuition feeds into everything. Your inner voice feeds into everything, and so feed your senses with good food, with good people that also enhance that to you, for you, sorry. And sometimes we can be around people that are very distracted. And unfortunately, in today's world, this is a more common thing than ever. It's, it's beautiful to find people that are so open and so aware, and that are so in touch with their senses, in touch with nature, in touch with their knowing, their inner voice. And if they can catch that in you, isn't it wonderful? If somebody can say to you, if they see you doing something and they say to you, I don't think that's you, normally you wouldn't make a decision as quickly as that. Normally I wouldn't think of you doing something like that. When you have that amazing friend and they're so intuitive and they know you so well and they give you advice and you say thank you, because you're right, I definitely was making the wrong decision. That's when we feel disconnected. That's when we switch off from our inner voice and our knowing and our intuition. And it's also the shadow side of us, The shadow side of us is the side of us that does not call us, you know, to search for intuition and to get in touch with our presence. Although sometimes, I'm going to contradict myself here, when we are deep in our shadow, in our, we'll say, our moments of shame, or if we have moments where our life is just not working out, maybe we're in a relationship that's not working, or maybe we're in a job that's not going to its best, or we're not expanding there, or we're not thriving. Sometimes the shadow is the part of us that will push us forward to just go back in, to internally search for our own knowing, for our own path, to find our way out of the darkness. And that's when presence and light can burst through, and intuition and inner voice can speak louder than ever. But in order for us to hear it, we really have to push away the externals, such as, I think, sometimes television. To be honest with you, I can't remember the last time I watched it. You know, radio also was something that I love music, but what I found very hard with radio was the fact the news was coming on so often. And the news is something I've never watched. You know, this is not something that I've learned here through anybody on YouTube. This was my own sensitivity, that I never felt that there was anything worth knowing on the news that somebody around me wouldn't speak to me about, you know. Because it just didn't make me feel good. That was my inner voice, my intuition, letting me know that this was something that was distracting me from doing greater things in the world, you know. And for me, the world is a better place when people start to get in touch and to connect with their own knowing, their intuition, you know, to find a space for themselves where they stop distracting themselves, watching other people and, you know, looking at Facebook and watching TV for endless of hours, and then wondering why they're unhappy, and the whole time eating unconsciously different foods, which I put my hand up, I have done as well. And lately I've been eating, I have to be honest, I ate a lot of junk food, because when I was studying I was just pulling food from here and there, and then, you know, I started to notice that my body wasn't feeling its best, you know, and I started to know my thoughts, you know, even though all this information was going in, it wasn't going anywhere. And then it came back to me again. You've lost touch with your nature. You've lost touch with your intuition, your inner self, your inner knowing, your presence. This is not who you really are. And I've made this mistake many times in my life, you know. I remember there was one time I worked as well in a legal firm, and it was very stressful there, and I remember that my intuition and my knowing and my gut was telling me, my presence, that this is not the place for you, you know. Because I remember at the time I had to lie a lot, you know, to people. They'd come into the office and they'd ask for appointments, or they'd ask me about a certain lawyer that they needed to speak to, and I'd have to lie and say he wasn't there, or he was out on a business or another appointment, sorry. You know, and for me, I just didn't feel right. That was my presence telling me, my energy, you are in the wrong place. And I remember when I was resisted it, I started to eat like my colleagues around me in the office. Everything was very fast paced, and everybody was just eating everything on the go. And I stopped doing my yoga practice also that time. So I'm not saying that this lifestyle is everybody's lifestyle, that you have to do yoga, you have to eat this way, or you have to, but I'm just saying what my experience was, and I just wanted to share that with you today. Your experience could be that you do cycling, you do marathon running, you do, I don't know, you know, some sport, or maybe you're a coach, you know, for health, you know, it depends on the person. Maybe you're a gardener, maybe you're a therapist, you know, and sometimes you lose your inner knowing or your intuition. Maybe if you treat the wrong person, or you're with the wrong client, maybe you're spending a lot of time on somebody that is really not hearing you, and there's an inner voice telling you to let go. You know, it really can work anyway. You know, so even the things I've mentioned, it can go further out than that. It can go to any person. It can go to a mother. It can go to a father, you know. So how do we connect to our inner voice and our inner knowing, our presence? Really, the only way is to disconnect from all external activities that desensitize our knowing, that block our presence, that darken our light, you know. So you know, you're the best judge of yourself, you know. This is not something that I can tell you, but I can tell you my experience. My experience is when I don't eat nourishing foods that nurture me, because I feel very connected to healthy food, and when I eat organic, I feel that my mind works clearly, my thoughts are more clear, and when I exercise also. So these are the things I have to really work on to connect with my inner voice, my intuition, and my presence. So I invite you this week to really start to reflect. So this would mean writing it down, where you felt you lost connection with your intuition. You don't have to sit there and try and figure out when it happened or the day, because really none of us know that. And even the day that we started to connect with our inner knowing and our intuition, you know. And there's lots more I'm going to talk about on this, you know, because there was a certain stage in my life where I woke up to a lot of things, and I think it's very powerful to share stuff like this, because not everybody speaks about it, you know. And I definitely will be sharing more on that, and I'm trying to connect with other people as well who've had similar experiences so that we can share it together. So what I invite you to do this week is to connect. If you are a person that likes to connect with people, then connect with people that know you very well and that are very open to connecting to their inner voice, their intuition, who are safe to be around, who are very loving, very gentle, and that know that intuition, inner voice, expression more importantly, because if your inner voice and your connection is switched off, your expression is also switched off, which is very powerful if you think about it. So this week I invite you to try and connect with your inner voice, to start to notice what foods don't feel good for you, that maybe sway you to do the wrong things, or maybe you know, you watch more TV when you eat like that, or you tend to scroll more on Facebook or hit into Instagram or into Snapchat. Try and detox yourself from this, you know, and see where it leads you. And if you're watching a lot of YouTube videos, you know, that's amazing. You know, it's brilliant here to all support each other. But I say maybe take a week off to really not externally read a book or gather information, just to really sit with your own internal self, maybe through meditation, or maybe just in a garden. Sit down on the earth, you know, if you have a beautiful garden. If the weather is not permitted to do that, maybe cook your delicious food, you know, maybe create a salad, maybe create some vegetable dish that you really love to create, you know, and really feel into the food, you know, the smells, the touch. How do you feel? This is how you really can connect with your intuition, is through food. Because food is speaking to us all the time. Does it feel good in our body? How does it digest? How do we feel energized? Do we feel tired after it? So for me, that was something I really needed to share. And I invite you this week to figure out where yours is. And I'm just going to see if I have anything, because I love writing things down, as you know. And I said here, knowing, feeling. It also can be a discomfort, you know, in the body. We often can feel discomfort if we don't, if we're not connected to our inner knowing. Another thing is, I said about the internal and external. Our well-being, you know, nature, pure air, breathing, meditation, yoga is fantastic. What else have I wrote here? Feel the waves of love as well. You know, when you feel the waves of love, you know, it's like that warm feeling when you really love something, when you're cooking something and you love the smell of it, or when you're, what else would I say? Even if it's like this warm feeling that you get from a good cup of herbal tea, or maybe a regular tea or a coffee, whatever it is, you know, that warm feeling, you know, it's really connecting. It's simply by connecting to little things like that, you know, and the more you do this, the more you pull back and you disconnect from all the externals, we'll say, like Facebook, YouTube, all of that, books even, research. just totally pull back. Even myself, I'm studying all the time, and I found it so difficult this week. I totally stopped studying for 1 week and I pulled back, and I started to really taste my food, and in mindfulness practice, this is so important, so I invite you, even if you just start with your food, and what I found out this week was that I really missed greens, I felt I was eating more greens this week than I have been in ages, so this is a sure sign for me that I need to up my greens. Obviously my blood needs more purifying, I need to detox, I need more energy, things like that. So definitely distractions, and it's also tuning in to your mind, body, spirit. It is a spiritual experience as well for some people. They like to think of it that way. So your presence again. So even if you think of it in a triangle, or if you think of it as 3 circles, mind, body, spirit, you're tuning in, to all 3. And they can be really helpful. And as well, people, as I say, people can be different, my eye is like twitching there now. People can be different. They can feel more presence, or some people can see it, they have a vision in their mind. It's like their vision is telling them that they should go for something, or eat this way, or do something. Or some people have the knowing, So it's like we can feel it, we can see it, or we can hear it, Sometimes people, they have this hearing, they can hear it, like you should do it this way, or you should do it that way. Sometimes it can be telling us, it's so helpful because it can also keep us from keeping out of danger, it can help us to not make the wrong decisions, So it's also very important to connect with the mind, heart and gut, which I have been practicing with loads of people through email. We've been doing it through Skype and through Hangouts on private. This is just something I'm doing for fun with different people. I'll drop my email below if you want to connect with me for that. I'll just throw that in there as well. But anyway, guys, if you have anything you want to add to this about the inner voice, the knowing, your presence, please drop it below. And I know this video was a little bit all over the place, but to be honest, I think it's because I'm just really connecting to myself, and I just want to say what's on my mind. This video wasn't one bit scripted. It really just came the way it sounded, and that's the way I kind of want to do things, Of course, I want to have a theme for a video, but yeah, today just all felt really to me about nature and food and connecting back, bringing myself back to who I really am. And I think we can't do that unless we do the inner work as well, it's so helpful. But listening, the awareness, like what they say in mindfulness, the awareness, the listening, the inner voice, your presence, your knowing. So anyway, guys, that's it. I'm going to give you all a great big kiss. And I shall talk to you soon, and hopefully I'll have a video up again during the week. And I also will have Louise Hayes' next chapter coming up also, because I'm way behind on that, because I've been doing so much study. And anyway, guys, that's it for me, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.